we're going to talk about slope-intercept form. And slope-intercept form is what you use when you're graphing a line. So let's talk about some definitions here. We have quite a few. So we've got a linear equation. It's an equation whose graph is a line. And that's the only type of graph we're really going to deal with this year, is one who is a straight line. So first we've got to talk about the x-intercept. It's the x-coordinate of a point where it crosses the x-axis. It's not really something new, but when we talk about it in a line, it's kind of a different, it has a different meaning. Then we've got the y-intercept. This is very important when we're talking about a linear equation. And this is where it crosses the y-axis. And then slope-intercept form has a specific equation. And it's a linear equation written in the form y equals mx plus b, where the y is by itself is always going to be over here, and then mx and b. The slope is represented by m, and we've already talked about slope, and the y-intercept is represented by b. So if we look at the form y equals mx plus b, we want y over here on the left-hand side of the equal sign. M represents your slope, x is always going to be x, and then plus b. And again, b is your y-intercept. So m is your slope, b is your y-intercept, x is just x, y stays over here. So what does this mean? How do we use slope-intercept form? Okay. So let's just use slope-intercept form, and we're going to be able to identify the slope and the y-intercept. So let's look at some examples. So here's our first one. First of all, to identify the slope and the y-intercept, it has to be in slope-intercept form, or y equals mx plus b form. So if you look at example 1, it is. So from this one, I can look at this and I can find my m and my b. My m, or my slope, remember, is right beside the x. So in this case, my slope would be -2. So this means that this equation, my slope is to go down 2 and over 1. And my b, or my y-intercept, is just 1. Now if I go over here to example 2, my m, or my slope, is 7/6. Remember, your slope is always located right beside the x. And my y-intercept, whoops, my b, which is my y-intercept, is not just 3/4, but -3/4. Okay, now I come down here. This one is not in y equals mx plus b form. So before I can identify my m and my b, I have to transform this equation. So I'm going to move my 6 over so that I get 2y equals 3x plus 6. Still not quite done. I'm going to divide everything by 2 so that my new equation is y equals 3/2 x plus 6 divided by 2 is 3. So now I can identify my m and my b because it is in y equals mx plus b. So I know that my m equals 3/2 and my b equals 3. So again, all I did there was transform the equation, which we've worked on several times, so that I could find the m and the b. Okay, example 4 also is not in the right form. So before I can solve it, I have to do some work. So first I'm going to distribute here so that I get -2y equals 30 minus 18x. Now I still have to get rid of my -2. So I get y equals, this would become -15 plus 9x. And I can pull my m and my b off of this. They're just backwards. Remember, your m, or your slope, is always beside the x. So in this case, my m is 9. And then my b is this -15. Okay, so identifying your slope and your y-intercept is pretty easy. You just have to make sure you have your equation in the correct format before you do it. So don't try to work from this thinking, oh yeah, it's going to be 3, because it's not. You have to get everything away from your y. You need a y to be standing alone before you can identify your m and your b. Okay, so what else can we do with slope-intercept form? Well, we can write an equation if we're given the slope and the intercept. So here, if I'm given my m and my b, remember slope-intercept force is y equals mx plus b, I can write the equation of this line. So all I would have to do is take it and say, okay, y equals 3/8x plus 6. Now, my slope and my y-intercept are in an equation. I can take this and graph it. Okay, so let's try another one. This time my slope is -3 and my y-intercept is -4. So same thing, y equals -3x minus 4. So now from just two points, I've been able to write the equation of my line. Well, what if I have a graph and I need to identify my slope, my y-intercept, and write my equation? Well, here's my graph. First I can identify my slope doing rise over run. So I find my 2 points. This one is negative. Remember, it's going down the mountain. So this has a rise of down 2. Down 2 over 2. Has a y-intercept. Remember, here's your y-axis of +2. So my equation would be y equals, and -2 over 2 is the same as -1. So I could say -1x plus 2. I could also just call this -x plus 2. Because remember, you don't actually have to write a -1. What about this one? What's my slope here? Again, I want to use rise over run. This one's going up. So if I did my triangle, this one's climbing up just 1 and going over 2. So my slope in this case is 1/2. My y-intercept is at +1. So my equation would be y equals 1/2 x plus 1. So I'm basically taking all the skills that I've been learning and putting them together to find these equations. Okay, so what else can I do with slope-intercept form? Well, we can graph. Okay, so let's take this example. I give you this equation, we're going to graph it. So first, we're going to start with our y-intercept, which in this case is -1. So I'm going to come down here and put a dot at -1. Now, before I can graph a line, I need a second point. So I'm going to use my slope. My slope, which my y-intercept here, my slope is up 3 over 1. So I'm going to go rise 1, 2, 3, and over 1. There's my second point. Now I can draw a line. Not the best, but there's my line. Okay, so let's try another one. This time I have a slope of -2/3, and my y-intercept is +2. So I'm going to come up here to +2, make my dot. Now, down 2 and over 3. So down 2 and over 3, 1, 2, 3. And there's my other line. Okay, so these are some examples that we can use slope-intercept form for. You're going to learn some more next year in algebra, but these are what we're going to use them for this year. So we'll do some more in class tomorrow.